Hey traders, Greg here, Master Trader. We're sitting here in a green room looking for trades, looking for this market to settle down. So let's take a look at that. You can see here on the right side there, I've got the chat room open to monitor what's being said. You might hear Dan in the background speaking behind me as he's talking to everybody about what's happening. So the S&Ps have pulled back. They are in an uptrend still. They touched the rising 20 MA, and it's beginning to form a bottoming tail bar. So earlier in the day, you can see the 65-minute chart down here. As this was coming down, it was hanging around here. We always look to the left. And I see those pivots. I assume it's going to stall. And you can see it began to stall on that bar there. And then it breaks below the lows. Well, that shifts thoughts to down below, which was down here. And that hasn't gotten there. So it appears that there was a little bit of a downside shakeout, the beginnings of it. And it's going to try and move back up again. Be looking for more evidence of that. But anyway, it's in an uptrend that gets the benefit of the doubt. We can make a turn here. Ideally, what I prefer is buy setups on the daily chart that have at least 2 bars. Doesn't always work out that way, but if it's got 2 bars, it builds up a bigger area of support on the 65-minute that it could launch from. Now, as I look at this, what is it going to do? Well, this looks like it's ready to go up. And maybe it makes new highs because the daily is in an uptrend. We're going to see. Now, the screen that you're looking at, you can see the chat here. Someone shorted the NQs. Alex shorted the NQs. I think it's going to get stopped out. Maybe take a look at that. Um, what he was looking at there. I'm not sure because it was down here in this area that I marked out earlier today, but he's probably looking at the 5-minute chart because that's what we utilize. That this was going to start to roll over there when it sprung back up again. Knowing him, he's probably got to stop a little further away, but again, I'm not sure what he was doing. So this has been in a trading range. We've been talking about that pre-market. I think it's chopping around. Looked like it was going to go down, maybe test a low. That's not happening. In any event, looking at what's going on here, you got markets, ETFs, and so on in subsectors of the market. You can see 142 sectors, and then as I click on each of these, it loads those subsectors, which is pretty cool. And then from there, it'll upload the stocks within there. So one of the things that I always look at, or for, in these scans, well, the rows are scans within the watch list, is to look for wide range bars. And the NASDAQ 100 has got a bearish wide range bar, and that implies it's going to go lower, but it's in a trading range, and maybe it's going to. We're going to see. One of the trades talked about earlier today in the room was buying puts on NVIDIA because of this rounding top and this topping tail and then the break lower. And looks like it's going down. So betting it's going to go down. So sorting this, percent change on the day tells me what's strong, and Bitcoin is strong. And in the pre-market videos, I talked about this pullback hook type of a pattern, and that triggered, and it's heading up, and looks like it's going to move up toward here. It's got room to go. So as we look at each of these, sort it by percent change on the day, does it have a wide range bar? Now, metals and mining, is gold, copper, steel is in there, some aluminum stocks, they're all in here. Wide range bar going up. It's getting a little extended from the 20. It's susceptible to a pullback. The idea is wide range bars out of consolidations ignite moves, whereas wide range bars getting further from the 20, especially if it starts to go vertical, usually historically has led to some type of slowing in momentum, not a collapse, maybe a pullback, maybe a sideways price action. And of course, we then can sort this here by wide range bars in the individual stocks. And that's a good setup. I actually mentioned this in the room a little while ago. Looking for, similar things, what's doing well, and then what's in the list. So there's a little wide range bar igniting, and that could be a buy. Near the end of the day, if you want to be a little more aggressive, again, share sizing down here. Sometimes you get 1, 2, 3s, and then it goes up. But it's a nice pattern, and what I like about it is that the pullback, and then it retraced all the way back up here, so it already touched that pivot So the first time it touches it, you could look at it as like it's weak in that as a resistance area. And then the sideways consolidation was bullish because it didn't pull back. And notice that bottoming tail bar that tells us that there were buyers on the dip. All right, so that looks good. That one's igniting, but it doesn't give us an entry point. We could just buy it, but we don't buy that. We want to buy down here on igniting bars, not ones that have been up multiple days in a row. That one's more of a continuation pattern. I like that. So materials, you can hear Dan back there. Alex is saying, look at ALB. Let's take a look at that. What is he looking at? I'm not sure. It's strong as hell for sure. He's saying LLC equals ALB. Maybe that is yes. See, that makes sense. He's saying it's the same sector and it's a stock that's just getting started. And yesterday it looked like it could pull back, and now it's reversed that back up again. So that's a nice looking pattern. Now, what else is doing well? Well, we know oil. That's up today. It's not a wide range bar, but it's near the top of the list. And we can certainly look at what's doing the worst, which is software. And this is going lower, and that's why those stocks within the sector are going lower. And we could look for bearish wide range bars that could be igniting by flipping that. It's down a bunch of days in a row. That needs a little consolidation, I think, because I won't short it because where am I going to put the stop up there? But it looks like it'll go lower. So these things are beginning to waterfall to the downside. But look at the weekly chart. We always look at multiple time frames to be able to look further to the left. Not so much for the pattern, but does this have a void? Yes. So my bias is it'll go lower, but how am I going to get on board? This doesn't give me a great entry point to get on board unless I just do it with a big old stop, and I don't want to do that. That's the software. Again, we go through there. Look at Microsoft breaking down, and look at the weekly chart. I mean, that is suggesting it's going to go lower, and that's bearish for the broader markets. But other things are, picking up the slack, so to speak, and things are holding up relatively well. But this could certainly start to drag it down. FDN starting to break down. So there's some bearish signs out there, but there's plenty of things in uptrends. For example, NYSE, solid uptrend, little extended from the 20, but there's a lot of stocks that are doing well. So money, as you've probably heard, is rotating out of the Magnificent Seven and some of the big stocks, but it's going into the underperformers. And we're finding tons of bottoming patterns, and a lot of bottoming patterns. Just looking again, another consumer discretionary in an uptrend. So other things that are doing well on the day or not. There's Bitcoin again. This is just a list that I've made up, my own interest lists, and again, we sorted them. And a lot of times you're going to get similar things within these lists, if they're in there, of course. So Magnificent Seven breaking down. You saw Microsoft, Apple. Looks like it's going lower. It's not ready yet, meaning it's going to have to break this low as it's making this little topping type of a pattern. Patrick there you can see is talking about MP. That's another material stock. Nice turnaround there. Alex is buying MDT. Medtronics, nice pullback towards support and a nice bullish bar to the upside. All right, others. As I said, this gives us the 142 sectors. What's doing well? Is there a wide range bar in there? Is there a bearish wide range bar? Sort it by what's doing well or not. And in the room earlier today, we looked through some of these agricultural products, which are bottoming out and beginning to turn up. Now, within that, we can see these different sectors that are in there. We go into building. So building, as you know, those building stocks, home builders, home construction, made this blast off move when the president made comments that they weren't going to allow institutions to buy individual homes. And that obviously was seen as a very positive event. So as these pull back, we anticipate that there's going to be buyers. In addition, look at interest rates today. Right? They started to break out, and now they're heading lower. That's going to be helpful or supportive of home builders and home building stocks. Lower interest rates, lower cost to borrow, mortgages, so on and so forth. And chemicals have been perking up. So a lot of things have made big moves. One of the places, as they're rotating out of the mags and some of the big players, they're going into what's underperformed. And these chemical stocks and some of the others, these are going to be buyers on pullbacks. Now, of course, it depends on how they pull back or they go sideways, but you can see the big bottom. You can see the weekly chart down here. Um, it's got supportive that it could go higher. And then from there, of course, we go and look at, I can sort it by percent change on the week, Dow. I looked at that earlier. It's up into resistance. So as we look at these different sectors and what they're doing, we're going to find patterns. This is what we call the factory work. Sometimes things are going to be moving quite a bit already. And sometimes we find at the exact entry points and we just have to go through them. And again, I'm just flipping through some of these. And this one isn't great, but not bad. It's a deep retracement, made a little bit more of a consolidation. Remember, our approach is to look for patterns that are more exact, giving entry points versus, hey, I think this is going up, let's buy it. Well, yeah, okay. Where are you going to put your stop loss? Things happen, and what are you going to do if it starts falling apart and it pulls back? Just say someone says, "Oh, this is looking great," and it pulls back, and now you're down 17%. Who the wants that? And then you're maybe getting stopped out in an area of support. Whereas what we're looking for, maybe this pulls back to what was resistance, becomes support. It pulls back into here and forms a buy setup. As we look at something like, the S&P 500, as this is pulling back into some support, can it make a turn day? That's what we're looking for versus the IWM, which is showing great relative strength, but it's not near support. If I buy it here, I don't want to put a stop under a prior day's low. It's just too tight. Even though we'd have to agree that it's going to go higher. It's near all-time highs. Who could deny that? But what's your entry point? You got to be disciplined to wait for your entry point. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll be doing more of them, maybe in the middle of the day here and there, even from the green room. But if you have questions, as always, email us, Greg and Dan at Master Trader.